Okay, let's do another video, and we'll just talk about how to properly disassemble a knife if you were going to have to take it apart. Now, a lot of people think a Phillips screwdriver is just a Phillips screwdriver, or that any particular head on most of these knives is just a hex head. This is not the case. Most of them today are T6 or T8, or Torx is what the T stands for. It's going to look something like this. I don't know what you can see here, but the T6 is what a lot of them are. Now the Emersons, like we're going to take apart today, is a Phillips and a flathead. And the right tool is necessary. Don't mix them up. Use the correct tool when you're going to take something apart. If it's a flathead, get the right flathead that fits it. It doesn't matter what it is. The right tool can be anything. As long as it fits and it can turn that screw with little damage to ding it up, it'll be just fine. And usually all it has to do on these is get it started. And once it's started, very gently, so you don't ding it up, you can go ahead and do the rest with your fingers. Now, don't mix a hex with a Torx. Don't use a Torx in a pinch just because it happens to fit. It's going to mess something up, and it's going to ding it, and it's going to leave little sharp edges your fingers catch, and you're going to feel that. The Phillips head on this particular, you want to get the right one. If you notice when you look at these, they come in different sizes. So try to get the one that fits it the best so that you ding the screws the least. What I usually do on these type is I'll open them up first after I've loosened the pivot, and then I will find the screwdriver that fits, and I will put it in, and I will loosen the screws. Now, on some of these in particular that are more complex, one of the things you want to be aware of is where everything is. So not only do I have a towel out in case one of these screws decides to walk off, but when you get this to where you're going to take it apart, set it down and put each part in line with where it goes. Try to be neat about this. Let's try to make sure that you have everything lined up so that each piece is location specific. Each screw goes right back the way it was, not just where it was. It goes back in the exact same way. Each pin, same thing. So when you put it back together, there's no mistake. It's back together the exact way it was when you took it apart. You didn't mix up screws. See, sometimes you don't realize it, but this screw might be longer by just a little bit than the one in front of it. And you might not find out until you go to put it back together. Sometimes a pin might just be a different pin in the front and rear. It could be that they're spaced differently apart, you know, that they actually are not the same at all. And you don't know that because you haven't built it. That's the reason a lot of these knives have a warranty void, because you took it apart. Because if you took it apart, there's no guarantee you put it back together correctly. See, so when you take it out, you put the screws right back the way they were, so you know exactly where each one was. Okay? And on these things like this floating stop pin, you go ahead and mark that with a Sharpie on the top, the part that you can see. So when you take this off now, and you go to put that back on in a little bit, each one of these went right back exactly where it was. Even with the pocket clip. You don't want to mix them up. If it was there when you got the knife and it worked and everything was functioning the way it was, put it back and put it back just the way it was. If you can get it off of there and leave it just the way it is, just do it. That's how I do it. That's the best way to adopt a policy of not changing anything. You know, on some of these cold steel knives, these triad locks, if you mix up the rear and the front stop pin, some of them stop functioning as well as they did when you got them. And then people wonder what's going on, and they blame it on the knife, and they don't even realize it's them. They took it apart and put it back together incorrectly. So, you know, you can't do that. You've got to watch. Some of them will malfunction, some of them don't give a damn and will just continue to work. But you can't figure it out, and the best way is to just make sure that you know each screw, each thing you take off, is location specific, so you know exactly where it goes each time that you've taken this thing apart. Even the washers, you want to make sure that you know which side each washer was on. Take your pin off, and now you've got your knife apart, but you also know exactly where each screw was, exactly, not just the pin, but now you know how to put the pin back in and exactly the way it was and which washer was where, because you haven't mixed anything up and it's all nice and neat. Now if you have to at this time take a digital photograph of it, you could also do that before you take it apart and make sure that you have an idea of where everything is, and then document it that way on some of these more complex models. But anyway, that's what I recommend when you take a knife apart and when you put it back together, that you have everything lined up so that each piece is as location specific as you can possibly make it without mixing things up. I also recommend, if you have pets, that you make sure your cats aren't around where they're going to jump up here and just throw everything off your table, because that has actually happened. So, you know, take precautions, make sure that you got everything taken care of to cover the bases, and then take your knife apart, clean it, do what you got to do, put it back together, and it all should go just fine. But if you make a habit of doing it other than this, at times you're going to find all of a sudden the knife's not back together right, something's not correct, and you won't be able to put your finger on it until the company or someone that knows knives tells you exactly what you did. Anyway, good luck. Thought I'd pass it on.